Good morning, welcome to Morning Outlook. This is Kim speaking on Wednesday the 21st of August. So starting off looking at the euro dollar now, just mentioning this in a trading room, it's running at a massive, for the average true range is about 7 pips on the hourly chart at the moment, which pretty much sums things up for the euro. It possibly looks better than it technically. It looks like a nice pattern that's sort of forming at times, and then you realise, well, it's got a 50 pip range. It's had better 60 odd pip range, and so which is pretty half decent for what we compared to. I mean, even back in June, we sort of dropped down to 40 odd pips at one stage. It was really quite thin, but it's there some of the time, but not all of the time, and we're sitting there. Not surprising, I guess. There hasn't been a lot to be reported to drive in one direction or the other. Lots of indecision out there, uncertainty, and it's stalled somewhat. So today we do have some potential, say fireworks, but possible action. Or bigger action, but that's not going to be until 7 p.m. this evening when we see the FOMC meeting results, or meeting minutes, beg your pardon, coming out then. So that may create some volatility later. Whether it'll be much, we'll see, but we may learn a little bit more that hasn't been mentioned within that with previous meetings and television interviews, etc. But for now, as I say, we left there. I'm looking at this. It has got the weekly pivot above it. Maybe there's sort of potential for that yet to be hit, and that may be done later when we get the FOMC minutes out. But until then, I think we're left to the very slow price action here, and it's quite ranging. So yes, it could sell off if it breaks through this hourly 34, but it's got very little in terms of 72, maybe 15-20 pips maybe squeezed out of that back down. We saw it yesterday, it came back off and eventually down to the prior lows, the Friday lows. We could get a move back down towards that, but not particularly obvious where this is going at the moment. Okay, that's the euro, so lack of conviction there. Now the pound, well, the pound yesterday, there was a sort of a moment of brightness, but I've got to question that, as Merkel, the German Chancellor, actually said that EU remain united on the approach to Brexit, but regarding the Brexit backstop, we'll think about practical solutions. It's a pity they couldn't have done that like several months ago, but obviously they may be thinking, well, now we've actually got to think about some practical solutions. But this guy really means that they'll leave, and they're preparing to leave, and perhaps they need to do something. Well, we'll see. But basically, I don't necessarily think there's a great deal of hope there. We may see the pound roll over again. It broke down earlier in the week. It's struggling. Yesterday it was sold off straight off the bat again. Initially got oversold far too quickly for me to try and get in. It didn't pull back that I was looking for. Today, well, you could argue, well, it's going to find some support where it is now, and that's the possibility. And if it does find a bit of support there may be a move back to the highs. I mean, some of the technical chappies out there would probably think there's a bit of a head and shoulders forming here, which again, possibly there is a bit of an ugly one for sure, but you could probably see it on the bigger time frames. Either way, I'm looking at this. I'm just letting it show us the way this morning a bit here. As I say, I'm not convinced with Merkel, but it may be enough to get the market and traders thinking, well, there's some potential good news on the cards for the pound. We'll see. But obvious targets to the upside then would be yesterday's highs, this morning's highs even, running through there, would be the obvious targets. Then if it breaks that, well, there's certainly some potential above there to run up towards a weekly R1. I was looking at daily S1 yesterday, but weekly R1 may have it. We'll see. But again, whatever happens come 7 o'clock this evening, UK time, British summer time, we may see some movement either way. Okay, looking at the dollar yen, another one difficult to work out at the moment. Still in this tightening range, effectively. A little bit bigger day yesterday, but it's already done almost half the range of yesterday today, or most of the range. I say half the range. Near enough all the range is covered there, 2/3. Where to? Well, I was waiting yesterday for the break of the upside, maybe for the R1. It was sort of pointing towards that upside. This is maybe just a bigger correction in further upside here, so may see some a further push to the upside. But with so much sort of movement already, you sort of start questioning how much has it got left before we see the bears come back in. Aussie dollar to me, it's just I'm sitting there looking at it now. Yes, it may break down at some, but it's still in this tight, choppy old region. It really needs to show its hand to me. Personally, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, well, there's potentially more downside there to be had at some point, but in the meantime, it could, if you're day trading, it could be snapping you all over the place. It may even be a long setup somewhere, but for me, it's just a mess on this hourly point of view. So I'm standing clear, as I do most times on the Aussie dollar as an intraday currency. Side out Canadian dollar. Again, this one's a choppy old mess. Sorry, I haven't taken my levels off there, but trying to push up every time it gets anywhere near the previous highs that it's been sold into. It did get to the near highs there. It's got sold into messy old price action. Fundamentally, it's being messed around with a lot less than anywhere else, and seemed to be ticking over okay. And it's one of the stronger currencies. The Canadian dollar, but it's not, the oil prices have dulled and it's not helping it in any way. So today may push up to the daily pivot, may just stay in range. It may even run into, if it can get up there beyond the through where it's sitting at the moment, may run back in towards the R1 sort of zone. But alternatively, I'm looking at sort of a very simple trend line across the lows there and thinking, well, oops, if I can only get the trend line on would be good. Looking at that trend line across the lows there, thinking, well, around about there. If it starts breaking down there, well, maybe on towards that 60-minute 200 sort of area, back towards its weekly pivot. But doesn't look great at the moment. So that's where we are. News-wise, as I said today, FOMC meeting at 7 o'clock. Meeting minutes at 7 o'clock. This afternoon, we've got Canadian data, inflation data out, so that will also show the state of the Canadian economy to a degree and where it's going. Inflation there, really a lot of numbers, is pretty flat in the headline figures. CBI is pretty flat. They're expecting to come out at about 0.1, so like many countries, they target 2%. So but that's what's expected, that's priced in. Okay, have a great day. Bye for now.